Rain pattered softly against the hospital window. A skinny, pale dude sat hunched in a chair by the bed, eyes sunken, hands shaking like he'd seen a ghost. 6 months he'd been stuck here, ever since they dragged him out of Aokigahara forest. The nurse said he'd wake up screaming from nightmares, muttering names nobody knew. Word was, in those 24 hours out there, he saw stuff no sane person could handle. Some folks swore he was just tripping. Others claimed they heard him yelling in the middle of the night from the forest, "I can't find the way out! They're coming!" Nobody dared ask him what went down. Until now. Today, he's ready to spill. But first, he drops a warning. If you value your life, don't ever step foot in Aokigahara. Here's his story, straight from the guy himself. I remember the moment I stepped into the forest. Everything seemed perfectly normal. The air was cool. Sunlight filtered softly through the branches, painting the ground in calm, golden patches. Inside, I was already planning how I'd mock everyone for believing in these so-called legends. I walked for about half an hour before I heard it. A faint whisper. So quiet, like it came from far away. But I felt it, brushing right against my ear. I told myself it had to be the wind. I ignored it. I checked my watch. 8:30 a.m. Still plenty of time. I spotted a narrow path marked with a few colored flags tied to branches. Probably hikers. Just to be safe, I started tying a strip of red tape along my route. After another 30 minutes, I went back to check the markers. But every single strip had been sliced clean in half, as if someone had carefully torn them. A cold wave ran down my spine. I checked my watch again. 9 a.m. A little further ahead, in a small clearing, I found an old, dirty tent. The faint scent of fresh tea hung in the air. The cup inside was still steaming. "Hello? Anyone here?" I called out loudly. Silence. I turned to leave when suddenly a low, close voice said, "Turn around." I froze. Slowly, I turned back. Nothing. Only the fog, creeping lazily between the trees. I kept walking, but it felt like I was moving in circles. No matter which way I turned, I saw the same crooked tree, the same large rock. I stopped to catch my breath. That's when I saw them. Small, wet footprints in the dirt. Barefoot, leading deeper into the mist. My watch read 10:30 a.m. In my head, I muttered, I should get out of here. But the thicker the fog grew, the harder it was to find the way back. Behind me, I heard heavy breathing. I walked faster. The breathing grew faster too. I stopped. Silence. Then, a warm drop of water fell on the back of my neck. I looked up. Only branches. But I knew, I felt, something was right above me. The air grew heavy. The whispers returned, now joined by faint sobbing. I couldn't understand the language, but the tone, it was pleading. My watch showed almost noon, yet the sunlight had dimmed to a strange, dull twilight. By the time it was close to 12 p.m., I knew I was lost. The red tape I'd tied was either gone or hanging from completely different branches, as if someone had moved them. I could feel someone following me, but every time I turned, it was just fog. From deep within that fog came the faint sound of a bell. At first, I thought it was the wind, but there was no wind. Not even the leaves stirred. I checked my watch. 12:17 p.m. My breathing had grown shallow. My legs felt heavier with every step, like the earth itself was holding me down. Every few steps, I felt something brush the back of my ankle. Light, deliberate fingertips. I whipped around and saw her. A woman, a few meters away, white dress, long black hair, and where her eyes should have been, only two deep, endless black holes. I blinked. She was gone. I pressed on. Around 1:35 p.m., I reached a strange tree. On its trunk, scratched into the bark, were the words, "Don't come back." The tree's skin had split open, and inside the split was something that looked like dried, cracked human skin. The whispers had turned into brittle, hollow laughter. Laughter that came from everywhere. 3 p.m., or so my watch claimed. I turned it off and on again, but it still read 3 p.m. The daylight was fading unnaturally, like a fake sunset was swallowing the forest. At 4:27 p.m., I stumbled upon a bizarre clearing. The branches above had twisted together into a dark archway. The fog here was thicker, the air colder. On my second step inside, a deep, dragging sound rumbled from beneath the earth, as if the ground itself was breathing. Laid out neatly in front of me was a row of wooden Japanese masks, each with an open mouth and hollow eyes. I kicked one by accident. Instantly, a sharp, piercing scream tore through the forest. The beam from my headlamp began flickering. In one brief flash, I saw something dangling from a branch a few meters ahead. I moved closer. My stomach twisted. It was an arm, pale, severed at the elbow. I screamed, stumbled back, tripped over a root, and fell hard. My hand landed on something soft. I looked down. My palm was pressed against a face, a cold, real face, eyes open wide, mouth slightly parted, staring right at me. After that, I don't know what time it was anymore. Every path I took brought me back to the same spot. Once again, I saw the tent from the morning. This time, someone was inside, sitting with their back to me. Black hair, torn clothes. I called out. Their head turned slowly, all the way, 180 degrees. Empty eye sockets, mouth opening wide, and from inside their throat, a pale, skeletal hand reached out. I ran. No direction, just away. My lungs burned. My legs went numb. I collapsed in the fog, tears running down my face. That's when I felt them. Several hands breaking through the soil, gripping my ankles. The last thing I remember was the sound of a rescue team shouting my name. I couldn't answer. I just stared past them, into the mist, where they were all standing, watching me. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was a white ceiling and the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. A sharp smell of disinfectant filled my nose, and the faint beep, beep, beep of a heart monitor reminded me I was still alive. "Mr. Harper, can you hear me?" A woman's voice, close to my ear. My head felt heavy, and I barely managed to turn it. A nurse, masked, was looking down at me. "You're in the hospital. 3 days ago, they found you in Aokigahara, in the middle of the fog, motionless, just shaking." I tried to speak, but my throat was bone dry. 3 days? For me, it had felt like only a few hours. I couldn't believe it. The nurse went on to say that before bringing me here, they'd kept me overnight at a local clinic because I was in severe shock. 6 months later, when I was finally discharged from the psychiatric ward, I was still seeing the trees and those hollow faces every night in my dreams. The doctors told me I should forget it all, but I can't. Not when I know someone else might go there. So I'm saying this now, with every ounce of seriousness I have left. No legend exists without a reason. Aokigahara isn't just a forest. It's a gateway. Beyond it, there's no boundary between the living and the dead. If you step into it, you'll hear voices you were never meant to hear. And once you see their faces, you'll never come back the same. I made it out, but half of me is still there. Please, even as a joke or out of curiosity, don't set foot in that forest. Because when you realize death has been walking right behind you all along, there's no turning back. If you've listened this far, it means your heart still beats for true, terrifying stories. Here, we tell you tales that have been recorded, events that some swear are still happening. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Like if you had the courage to listen all the way through. Comment your thoughts. What do you think the man saw in the fog? And most importantly, would you dare step into Aokigahara?